There's a lot of lore about Dracula in Marvel. A lot of it has to do with the Darkhold, which is one of the main reasons why vampires even exist. There was this time Doctor Strange's soul was separate from its vehicle, and thanks to Dracula's unholy hypnotic spell closing in his mind, technically his own body was foreign to him after he initiated the vampiric transformation. That's Dracula. He has a base of operations that's even on the moon. You can get an idea of the resources he has. Like, it's a lot of stuff up in here when we're talking about versatility. I mean, it is Marvel. You gotta adapt. I mean, one of his resources is like the head of Medusa that petrify beings and turn you into stone. Against super overpowered beings like the Hulk, he has adamantium nets. Even a spider slayer robot, when his body's weakened, he can use. Yes, he has a son. His son had a sword, and he didn't have a sword. Despite him being unarmed, he's still able to defeat his son, regardless of it. Imagine having such insane survivability that a sword can be plunged into your chest, and you can just walk around with it and just pull it out, and apparently blowing their head off doesn't kill them. Dracula, for example, can regenerate from a skeletal state in just a few mere moments. There's a lot of ways to bring him back to life. If he somehow does die, like the tears or the blood of a virgin pure can reanimate the ashes of a vampire. Yeah. How do you kill this guy for good? I guess you got to throw his ashes in the sun. Or if his ashes are placed in a coffin with native soil, okay, because they don't breathe. Dracula came around in the 1400s-ish, but did you know there was a being before him? This being known as Varnir, Lord of the Vampires. And this is part of the reason on why Dracula ends up becoming so powerful too. Yes, there was a point where even Varnir was a human at one point, but only because of this cult with Darkholders is the reason why vampires even came to be, even from this guy. Because within the pages of the Darkhold is the reason why vampires even exist. Varnir is tired of this lonely, long lifespan until which Dracula got his ultimate power up to be his successor and replace him. You shall truly be Lord of Vampires, as I am and have always been, and would always be should I chose it. The blood of Varnir. Just for those that are curious, this is how all that happened. There's even some implications that this ultimate vampire before Dracula was kind of scripting out his life in a sort of script type of way in which all of this was his plan so he can have him as a successor and stuff of that such. Yeah, it gets really deep, if you know what I mean. I've got videos about Blade, but what about that guy known as Marvel Dracula? You guys like vampires, right? Dracula's like at the top of the food chain when it comes to vampires. In Marvel lore, it's funny how the general public doesn't believe he actually exists and he never became a vampire and died in the 15th century. He's the ruler of Earth's vampires. They pretty much tell about his history right here, on how he was born in the 1430 as the son of Vlad Dracula, and that's how all that happened. Dracula was the most powerful of all vampires in history. It originated in pre-cataclysmic Atlantis when certain mystics discovered the indestructible parchments upon which the demon Chthon had inscribed spells. These same things will be bound into the book named the Darkhold. The mystics used the spell and parchments to turn their enemies into vampires. The vampires slandered much of the Atlantean populace and managed to survive the cataclysm. Vampires require the fresh blood of living beings in order to sustain their existence. Yeah, it's a lot of information about Dracula. But how strong is this guy, though? Well, for one, he can rip other vampires in two. When it comes to normal men, he can easily tear off their heads. Notice how Dracula has the strength to do this to Spider-Man and turn it into something and pin Spider-Man to the point where Spider-Man can't really get out of this restraint. And we already know Spider-Man can lift 60-plus ton tank and flick 30-ton train carts with his freaking finger. But for some reason, he couldn't get Dracula off of him. Dracula is also similar or stronger than certain other vampire tiers that I have videos about on the channel, like Morbius. Morbius is a being who has the power to KO Spider-Man himself without even hitting him a direct blow to the head. Just across the shoulders, he can knock him out. This is kind of let you know what the vampire tiers can do. And Dracula is very high up on the food chain when it comes to vampires, having their strength and other aspects about him that makes him a threat. If you have your doubts about Dracula versus Morbius, look how he does Morbius when it comes to strength. So whatever Morbius can do and what Spider-Man can do in physical strength, physicals, Dracula should be able to do as well. And I'm not going to even bring up the part with his son again. When you think about it, look how his son did against Blade, one of the best vampire tiers on top of the food chain. And of course, Dracula overpowered him, like I already showed. So it's too much to respect from him. And on Marvel, they get the power grid. And we're not even going to get on the argument that Spider-Man can lift maybe 1,000 tons because he supported a piece of a building. Obviously, he didn't lift it all. The fact Spider-Man tiers, vampire tiers are around the same range when it comes to physicals. There's a possibility Dracula could even lift thousands of tons. But that's the thing is, nobody really cares about his physicals because that's not even what he specializes in. But that's just something to think about. Iron fences, he can rip free with his bare hands. Freaking tanks, he can just come up to a hatch and tear it off like it's paper of some sort. One of his best feats of all time, overpowering Colossus with this type of punch here, throwing him that far. He can literally just straight up walk through hurricane winds. Hey, wooden pole that's this big, let me throw it through a window. Big wooden stuff like this he can lift. Casually crushes a man's skull, because why not? Grown men get slung through wooden walls, tearing loose a steel protection bar with his powerful talons. Other vampires here that can snap chains, he can overpower them. It makes sense that he's physically stronger than a vampire Doctor Strange, because that's not his main thing, is strength. Like, he's a sorcerer, not a powerhouse physically. Of course, he's gotten in plenty of battles with Blade, crushing Blade's wooden knife, just to show you that wood isn't an end-all be-all. Beings like Black Knight, I have videos about on the channel. It shows his skills with melee sword combat, like how he took on Black Knight here, Dane. I mean, they do say he's a military strategist of our time, trained from birth, centuries of experience, you know. Like all vampires, the standard weaknesses to things such as sunlight still applies, beings using the crucifix, but they have to believe in it. So a random person just can't pick it up and, yeah, you actually have to believe in it. But any symbol of God will hurt no matter what, though, if you believe in it, though. Even if somebody holds two sticks together, making a cross, that works. We're not even going to talk about churches. Standard weaknesses like the stake, wood as a weakness for vampires, that's part of being a vampire. Holy water hurts him. Wolf's bane, mirrors repel him. Same with silver. Even if you're a normal human with silver coins, you're a threat. Silver spear too. Garlic even prevents him from changing form, like turning into a bat or even misform. The garlic will prevent it. Just your standard vampire type weaknesses type stuff, but he still can counter a lot of this stuff anyway. It's not like an end all be all. Like, just because you have a wooden stake doesn't guarantee a win against him. Or same with silvers or cross. He parries kicks, catches you, and throws you. Beings that can shatter walls with ease, he can just fight against or throw them. You can throw a 200-pound weight at him. He can catch it casually, like with one arm, like it's not even heavy at all. Tearing men apart is something he does all the time. Ripped apart. Metal bars he demolishes. He has different forms, and he can lift up blade like he doesn't weigh 200 pounds. He has no problem smashing gold and even lifting it up. Can throw a man so far that it shattering his brains, compacting like oatmeal. In the middle of falling, notice how he catches himself like that with grip. Can throw you so hard that your bones break on landing. Can straight up pin super strong beings to the ground and they can't move. His tendons are even compared to steel, letting you know he ain't normal. Notice how he's strong enough to crush rifles. Vampire hunters, they get slung around like they're weightless. Creatures of stone, he has no problem overpowering. Bending metal for him is just a reoccurring theme at this point. Big giant iron lids he can casually throw. Can throw 180-pound folks. When it comes to his strength, he just punts Spider-Man like a football away. Does this to Blade, battling Blade plenty of times and even snapping his sword. Smacks Spider-Man down with a backhand. Can simply break through thick doors. Mutants like Nightcrawler, that should be in the super soldier-ish ranges. Despite not having blood for days technically, and technically being too weak to fight back, he was still able to defeat other powerful vampire level beings. Anyway, no matter which form he's in, he smashes through wood, shatters a heavy oak door. This guy took on the literal Robin Hood. I'm weak. He can fight the entire Boston police force on his own. Too freaking strong. Kills other mighty vampires like Brand. The show is the reason why he's the Lord. Human Blade gets smacked to the ground. Hits so hard, apparently nothing can survive it. That's just a pun, I guess. Can either knock you out or kill you with a single hit. He has the strength to fight off several humans at once, or even a group of demons on his own, or just backhand you all the way across the room. Strong enough to be stated to have the strength of 22 mere men. Even if you're supposedly professional, you get one-shotted. He can transform when he really wants to go berserk, shape-shifting style, like transform into a monster to take on another vampire, for example. Dude has crazy hypnosis type art to where he can make you think you killed him, but you really didn't, so you see his skeleton like he's dead when he's really not. Yeah, like trickery. He turns into mist with stuff like this too. Like here, how he turns his flesh into mist. This is how he escapes constraints like the bands of Sidorak, for example, by turning into mist. He doesn't have to turn his entire body parts into mist, just singular body parts if he wants to, as he wishes. Like if he wants to just turn his hand into mist, that can be mist alone while the rest of his body's physical. Or he can just turn into mist to suffocate someone or a woman. Or turn into mist to avoid attacks. Or like I've shown you many times in this video, like turning into a bat. Imagine trying to speed blitz somebody and they turn into mist. How do you hit them? Like imagine trying to punch gas, sand, smoke, or mist with physical attacks. It's just going to frustrate you like Dracula does. Naturally, he has superhuman speed, showing how he can quickly race like a blur to the top of his own castle. He's fast enough to catch up to cars when he's flying like a bat. It's proven when he follows Blade's motorcycle in bat state, avoiding chandeliers from falling on top of him. flies out of caves at blinding speed. You already know he needs blood, and he can drink blood from you in a very brief moment. Steady to move with uncanny inhuman speed. He's fought many things and can react to different things too. Even beams. He can avoid Old Man Logan's attacks, for example. Plenty of occasions fighting Blade. Of course, he has combat speed on the level of Blade. Blade talks about how Dracula moves in eye blink, so he's very fast. Blade has had moments where he has trouble reacting to him. Super soldier level beings like Deadpool, he's shown he can react to effortlessly, like a Blur, like toying with him kinda. Deadpool even says, can you slow down for a second, letting you know how fast he is. Compared to these super soldiers type characters, yeah, Blitz. He's fast enough to react to crossbow bolts out of the air. Blitzes soldiers before they can even have time to defend themselves or react. He can hear you getting ready to shoot and throws a man in the way before you have a chance to even finish shooting at him. You know, he has the standard vampire weaknesses, so some of these occasions he's weakened, like he struggled to avoid some of these darts because of him being weakened. Reacts to these arrows by blocking it with another being's body. His reflexes, I mean, look how he blocks these darts. Reacting to stuff like that, he moves quickly to dodge it. Sometimes he transforms to evade gunfire, like turning into a bat to make his body smaller. Or powerhouse tears like Apocalypse, he turns into Mist to avoid his attacks. Or turns into Mitch to get out of Doctor Strange's magical cage. Even when Colossus picks up Wolverine to throw him at Dracula, he turns into Mist to avoid that attack. You see him looking. He can transform before the bullets are fired to avoid attacks. Avoids these crossbow bolts by turning into Mist. He changes form faster than the eyes can follow. Even faster than you can think. Faster than the human eye can follow, changes, shifts, and alters his very form itself. Even if you use his weaknesses against him, he can turn into mist just in time so he can avoid being stabbed, like by this stake. Shifts forms faster than the bolt can fire, for example. So even if you have his weakness, it's hard to even hit the guy. It's just too many occasions of him avoiding arrows like this. He even claimed he can shift faster than the face can even make expressions. The madness doesn't end, because even if you hit him with a weakness, if you remove the stake fast enough, he still can survive. He even heals from a stake wound, but he does seem to have issues with super crazy speedsters. He survived stuff that would have killed 100,000 humans, endured the pain of his consciousness being ripped apart, bullets, knives, and explosions. He can withstand stuff from that, whether it be just his pure skin hitting it or turning into mist to dodge it and stuff. If you hit him with a pole, it will break against him, depending on how thin it is in his bat state. Notice how he walks through Doctor Strange's spell, blasted by lightning bolts from Storm, angry punches from Captain Britain, a brutish type character, remains conscious and is quickly on his feet. Old Man Logan's claws impale him. He seems to be able to recover from stuff like this. Standing on the moon without no environment to protect him, he seems okay from it. Even when his stomach is slashed open, he continues fighting. And when you see bullets come in contact with him, they just kind of seem to go through him. Just like in this occasion as well. Like, it's like he's not tangible on some occasions. Getting shot is nothing, even when you shoot him with rifles, even shooting him to the face, you're just wasting bullets at this point. He has a lot of mental resistance, like breaking out of Doctor Strange's mental type of spells. Remember how I said earlier, just because you have his weaknesses, it's not an end-all be-all. So a lot of you probably think, oh, he's weak, man, all these weaknesses. Nah, it's been plenty of times where he retaliates after getting hit from his weakness. Like Silver, like how he was badly burned by a cross in his face, but later he says he was nearly killed, but he still survived. A man covered in religious symbols he grabbed, and it was hurting him really bad, but he seems to heal rather quickly and can continue fighting. And apparently running water can burn like acid. Dracula can still withstand it to some degree still. Even being stabbed multiple times by a wooden knife by Blade, still able to react and toss Blade away after all of this pain. He got stabbed by a wooden frag bullet and it exploded inside of him while being stabbed some more conveniently. And why is he still not dead yet? He was weakened, but he stayed conscious enough to be able to drink some blood to restore himself. So it kind of heals all of that. He even continues fighting even though there was a stake through the heart this one time. It took multiple to take him down. He holds on the crosses even as it burns his hands. Even with the silver through his chest, all logic demands that he should not be able to with this BS going on. He regenerates burns from a cross after a few hours. So you're probably thinking this guy has a ton of weaknesses. How is he even a threat? Actually, think of it like this. Imagine two normal humans fight, right? And one of them has a sword and one of them doesn't. The one that has the sword doesn't necessarily mean he has to win just because he has the weapon, even though he probably has higher probability. It's kind of like that when it comes to Dracula. Just because you can harm him with a multitude of different things, it's kind of like that human example. Just because you have it doesn't mean you can win. You know, Dracula still has super speed, still has reflexes to counter his weaknesses, to dodge the attacks, turn into mist before you can hit him with the attack. In fact, you have to believe in it. Even if you do land a stab on him, it's not an instant fall on the ground like how Kryptonite does, like how Superman falls instantly instantly from the ground when kryptonite is near him. If you stab him with wood, it might take 15 slashes. It might take 10. You know, it's not necessarily a guaranteed end-all be-all, so he's still powerful and a threat. If you think of it like that, when you hear me talk about the weaknesses, it won't make you think, dang, this dude got a lot of weaknesses. I would even argue that his physical strength and stuff like that is not even his most destructive ability. Him being able to blast with lightning, different elemental stuff is what I would say is better. Like a vampire hunter in Apocalypse, he brings a lightning bolt down in the middle of it. Or the fact he can just summon a small storm and wipe out a village off the face of the earth with just his blast power, technically. And it's not like a one-off ability. You can see him closing doors with a gust of wind. They even go as far as saying the vampire can direct the elements, the rain, the thunder, and the snow. The vampire can become like the mist itself. Here you can see him summoning lightning to attack a specific target here, or just simply strike a vampire with the lightning. Or just when he gets mad, he summons a thunderstorm because he can. Yeah, don't mess with him. He can just blast you with lightning. Not only does he have enhanced senses to where he can hear the footsteps of insects. Yeah, insects. Can just sense the presence of Doctor Strange, so it's hard to sneak up on him. He knows some magic here and there. To reanimate being using this spell, it allows him to resurrect those he turned into vampires. He even created a sentient golem who didn't even know. Molded from clay and ancient spells animated by spirits Dracula imprisoned in those snow globes. Their memories were given to you, their lives became yours. He has literal mystic defenses that can incapacitate Doctor Strange. His physical form, I'm assuming Doctor Strange didn't have no shields up to protect himself. Has a mystical battle with Doctor Strange on the astral plane, but he does lose this one though. And he doesn't show up in photographs to really hold the myth. Did I mention he can fly? How do you explain this walking down a wall sideways? He ain't freaking Spider-Man. And of course vampires have night vision. They're always in the nighttime anyway. You see him using the sword in quite a few panels. Even if they're very old panels, his swordsmanship is decent. Make him even more of a threat. He can do psionic type stuff, like forcing you to go back to your human form, bruh. Since he's the lord of the vampires, he has more powerful hypnotism than any other vampire. Of course, most of the time he's the lord of vampires, but lords of vampire trades places in, you know, how comics are. Most of the time he's, you know, the best when it comes to hypnosis. Women are even mystically attracted to Dracula, or can hypnotize a group of people to kill each other, or hypnotize folks to tell their secrets to Dracula, orders a group of wolves to attack a man, and they do, controls a group of villagers, controls spiders, controls a group of rats to attack folk, hypnotizes a group of children, can control all rats and wolves, can turn beings into mindless slaves, basically. It even leaves people unaware that they're even being controlled. If you got weak-mindedness, he can just look into your eyes and control you that way. So when it comes to physical strength, he's a Spider-Man tier, but with extra stuff and the number of different abilities he can do, like mind stuff, turn intangible, I would say he's definitely probably even a tier above that, thanks to him being the lord of them. He has blast power to wipe out an entire city. Can straight up turn into normal-sized bats, man-sized bats, a swarm of a dozen bats, all him, can turn into his wolf like I already showed a million times with Spider-Man, or even a bat-like monster, like I already showed too. He makes beings like super soldier tiers like Deadpool look foolish when it comes to speed and etc. Completely curb stomping him. It's not until he turned his back on Deadpool to where he got to jump on him like that. You know what I mean? But him doing this to Black Knight is a big deal. When he was all over Spider-Man, it took Doctor Strange's help to get Dracula off of him. It was even implied that Spider-Man was doomed if Doctor Strange didn't step in. That lets you know how strong Dracula is as an opponent when it comes to Spider-Man tiers. You have no choice but to respect Dracula. What did you learn about Dracula? Did you know he was this overpowered? Yeah, he's pretty crazy. Physical strength is one thing, but then he has like wind abilities and blast power to help him even further. Wiping out a city like it was no big deal. Can project lightning and wind and stuff like that. Turn you into a vampire, and once he turns you to a vampire, he has almost full control over you. And he can even hypnotize normal people. His vampirism is so crazy that even he made Doctor Strange's own body foreign to his own self when he was in astral state and couldn't enter his own body. Ain't that crazy? But what do you guys think? Do you want to see Dracula in live action? But I'll see you guys later. Respect them. Thank you guys for the donations also. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.